The story of D-Day is not just one of strategy, but also of human resilience and sacrifice. As the world watched, the first tremors of the largest seaborne invasion in history reverberated across the globe. What began as a quiet buildup of preparations soon exploded into the chaos of battle. Thousands of men, ships, and planes took to the skies and waters in a joint Allied effort to rid Europe of the Nazi stranglehold. But what many do not know is the personal stories of courage and the raw, visceral experience of the men who fought on that fateful day. The creator of Polly Speaks For You has always been passionate about empowering individuals, especially those with disabilities or learning challenges, through text-to-speech and voice recognition technology. Polly Speaks For You isn't just a tool, it's a bridge for people to communicate and interact with the world in a meaningful way. By blending historical storytelling with cutting-edge tech, the creator showcases how powerful a voice can be, whether telling your own story or preserving history. So hit that like, share, and subscribe button and help this channel grow. Now back to the story. The calm before the storm, gathering the forces. Leading up to the early morning hours of June 6, 1944, the British Isles were bustling with the quiet, urgent energy of men preparing for an unimaginable test. Cities like Southampton, Portsmouth, and Plymouth became the epicenter of Allied forces' efforts to coordinate, strategize, and prepare for a monumental task. Thousands of ships, armed with tanks and soldiers, stood at the ready in the harbors. Paratroopers readied themselves for their dangerous drops over enemy lines, while air crews checked and rechecked their bombers. Among the Allied forces were General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, and General Bernard Montgomery, the British commander in charge of the ground forces. They, along with the countless generals, planners, and soldiers, would carry the weight of destiny on their shoulders. Little did they know how much their decisions would alter the course of the war. Yet amidst the heightened urgency and the sense of destiny in the air, there were those who reflected on the enormity of what was about to take place. Sergeant Thomas Hughes, a young British soldier, reflected on the night before in his diary. As I sit here with my mates in this damp, cold tent, I can't help but wonder if I'll ever see home again. The brat says it. This is the day that changes everything. But how many families will be devastated? I've got a picture of my mom in my pocket. That's what I keep thinking about. Even though we're all being told to focus on the mission, I can only pray this works. I can only pray that we can get through this. The drop, paratroopers over France. Before the first wave of amphibious assault forces hit the beaches of Normandy, the skies were already alive with a different kind of storm. It was in the early hours of the morning, when most of the people of Normandy were still asleep, that the first paratroopers began to descend. The 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions of the United States Army had the mission of securing the inland territory, cutting off German reinforcements, and capturing key positions that would pave the way for the beach landings. Their parachutes scattered across the night sky, and as they floated toward the ground, they became part of a deadly gamble. One such paratrooper, Lieutenant Robert Bob Perry, remembered the moment he jumped from his plane. I was ready, or at least I thought I was. The nerves were there, but they were under control. We jumped at around 1 a.m., and the sight of thousands of us pouring from the skies, falling like raindrops into the darkness, was surreal. But once I hit the ground, it was all about survival. Nothing else mattered. The Germans were everywhere. The chaos was immediate. The German forces, despite the deceptive tactics used by the Allies to confuse them, had expected an attack somewhere in Normandy. And while the main assault would come at the beaches, the paratroopers were the vanguard, risking everything to secure vital positions inland. Unfortunately, not all drops went as planned. Lieutenant Perry landed miles away from his target, deep in the countryside, surrounded by German soldiers. Yet, in that moment of terror, the French resistance was instrumental in ensuring that Allied paratroopers were able to fight on. We had no map, no clear plan, but the French resistance was there to help us. They gave us food, supplies, and most importantly, they showed us where the Germans were, Perry would later say. The beaches. Battle on the shores of Normandy. The first waves of infantrymen made their assault around 6:30, hitting the beaches of Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword Beach. As the landings unfolded, The beaches became an inferno of explosions, gunfire, and screaming men. In all, more than 156,000 Allied troops stormed the beaches that day, an operation of colossal scale, but also one fraught with immense loss. For many soldiers, the beach landings were like nothing they had imagined. Private James Taylor, a 19-year-old from Ohio, remembered, "We hit the sand and the world exploded. It wasn't a beach like you'd think. No, it was a battlefield. There was sand, yes, but all around us were explosions. We were running, dodging bullets, trying to find cover. I saw my friend Danny, and he was gone in an instant. A shot, and then nothing. We kept moving, but it felt like the world was falling apart. Still, we had a job to do." The defenders on the German side, entrenched in machine gun nests, bunkers, and artillery positions, were waiting. The Omaha Beach assault was the deadliest for the Americans, with over 2,000 killed and many others left wounded in the surf, pinned down by the German fire. The Americans, led by commanders like General Omar Bradley, pressed on, often using the bodies of fallen comrades as shields while trying to advance inland. Meanwhile, further east at Gold Beach, the British forces were experiencing a slightly more successful landing, but it wasn't without its difficulties. Major Patrick O'Neill, a commander in the British Royal Engineers, remarked, "We hit the beach with our tanks and bulldozers to clear paths for the infantry. But it was a nightmare. We were supposed to be moving forward, but we were stuck in the mud and under fire. We had to clear a path through mines, obstacles, and barbed wire. Every second felt like it might be our last." The impact of the resistance and the civilian perspective. As the battle for Normandy raged on, behind enemy lines, the French resistance had already begun their own campaign of sabotage. Train tracks were destroyed, communication lines were cut, and scattered cells of resistance fighters actively worked to disrupt German reinforcements. In one particularly memorable instance, René Duval, a French resistance fighter who had been instrumental in smuggling documents and supplies to the Allies, recounted, "We had been waiting for months, try to get ready. The moment the landings began, we knew we had to act. We blew up German supply trucks and helped guide the Allies to their targets. It wasn't easy, and the Germans retaliated fiercely, but seeing the Allies land on those beaches, it was like the day we had all been waiting for." The civilian perspective on D-Day also played an important part in the story. For many French citizens, D-Day was not just a military action. It was the moment they had been waiting for. Clara Dubois, a local French woman who lived near Juno Beach, recalled, "We had heard rumors for weeks. That morning, we woke up to the sound of bombs. It was terrifying. But then, when we saw the soldiers coming ashore, we knew this was it. This was the end of the occupation. The Allies were here, and freedom was close." The media's role: a world holds its breath. As the landings progressed, the world's media were in full swing. The BBC and other radio stations broadcast reports of the battle, though at times, the true scale of the invasion could not be fully conveyed. In the United States, newspapers carried urgent headlines. Operation Overlord: the battle for France begins. Allied forces storm Normandy beaches. Victory within reach. The reports painted a picture of a fierce and costly struggle. But there was also hope. The realization that this invasion was the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany was palpable. It was a monumental moment, filled with a sense of inevitability that victory was within reach. Victory at a price. By the end of the day, the Allies had succeeded in securing a foothold in France. But the cost was heavy. The dead and the wounded were countless. Thousands of families across the world would receive the telegrams informing them that their loved ones would not be returning. For the soldiers who survived, the memory of the battle never faded. Sergeant Robert Wilkins, who had survived the storming of Omaha Beach, later reflected, "It was a victory, but one that came at a terrible cost. Every day I think about the men we lost. The world will remember D-Day, and so should we. But we will never forget the price it cost." In the years to come, many of the men who fought that day would return to the beaches of Normandy. They would stand together, side by side, remembering their comrades and honoring their sacrifices. The landings of D-Day, though part of a greater story of victory, would forever be marked by the faces of those who gave their all to ensure that future generations would live in a world free from tyranny. In the end, D-Day was not just a battle of soldiers. It was a battle of humanity. A battle fought with blood, sweat, and tears. A battle that determined the future of the world. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. To learn more about South Africa's leading accessibility software, visit www.polispeaks4u.co.za and support this meaningful dyslexic initiative. Thank you for watching.